Big exciting news to start a Saturday morning for you as I'm here, you're here, and the push is underway for MSC, multiple stimulus checks. There's calls from congressional leaders. There's calls from the Purple Power. There's a push to revise the second stimulus package, which may ultimately turn into both the second and third stimulus package, broader, more money for you, more money in your hands. This is Saturday Morning LALATE, and I'm glad you're here, and it's very exciting news to start your new Saturday morning. Let's get right to it. Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Morning to LALATE, and I hope you are good and safe. The toast is buttering. No, the toast is toasting. The butter is buttering. I did that again. How does toast butter itself? I just, the coffee's brewing. The bacon's grilling. Boy, I have a lot of bacon viewers. You are all in my hearts. Bacon is the universal language of love. I appreciate you for tuning in. And thank you for joining me for early mornings LALATE. But this is going to be the bigger broadcast with a lot more details and breaking news. So go to the Fronts channel, subscribe. 294, baby. We're at 294,000, reaching 300,000, 6,000 away. Let's get it. Let's try to get this weekend or by Monday. Let's do it. Also, like this video. In this video, I'll have incredible great news to start your Saturday morning. Refresh, energize, and optimistic for MSC, multiple stimulus checks. On Friday, last night, and early this morning, on Early Mornings LALATE, I detailed the push for MSC. I'll have more exciting news. Multiple stimulus checks, hashtag MSC. Next, I'll be going over the history of MSC and why they're needed now and why there's a push to get those in what could be a mixture of both a second and third stimulus package happening simultaneously. Oh, baby, this is getting really good. Next, executive orders. It's Saturday. It's that magic day. It's that magic day when executive orders are issued. Could today be the big day? Next, before the election, after the election, but before inauguration. There's a lot of questions coming out overnight about what could happen, what could not happen, and what should happen. I'll be going over those analyst remarks. Also, big remarks by Mark Cuban overnight about what should be done. Finally, new reports about COVID-19. Interesting details, and this is amid the economic details that broke yesterday. All right, let's get to the breaking news. The breaking news for a Saturday morning is MSC, multiple stimulus checks. A push is underway, both for the Purple Power, congressional leaders, and outside analysts saying, you know what? It's time for multiple stimulus checks, because what's happened here is that we currently, as we sit here in October, and we are talking about the second stimulus package, by all accounts, we're starting to move into the realm of third stimulus package, because the second stimulus package was supposed to be passed, this package was supposed to be passed in July, and we're almost heading to the point at which we're ready for the third stimulus package. And so now there's a call to say, hey, multiple stimulus checks. MSC. Last night, I launched the new hashtag campaign for the Purple Power. Hashtag MSC. Tag your congressmen, tag your politicians, tag your political leaders, tag your cabinet members. With this video, share this morning's LALATE video and say, we deserve multiple stimulus checks. Let's go over the incredible history and why everyone is starting to get on board for multiple stimulus checks if they weren't already. Let's go over it. First, when the pandemic hit in March, we were initially warned that we would go on lockdown for 3 months at least, March, April, May. You got a first stimulus package written up at the time that called for multiple stimulus checks, a stimulus check every month that you were on lockdown. That was CARES Act 1, the first stimulus package. Ultimately, what happened, however, was by the time it went to final revisions, someone, and let's just say $12 ice cream, someone took out the multiple stimulus checks and said, you know what, we'll get to it later. Ultimately, those three words, four words, get to it later. Four words have actually been very against us this entire stimulus debate because they didn't get to it later. They actually never acknowledged that they had to take care of it later. And so what happened was when CARES Act 1 was passed, one stimulus check for the month of March, and guess what? If you're an adult dependent, Zippo. That was also an error. So they made not one but two errors. So as you came into May, about a month later, Senator Harris, now VP nominee Harris, on the Biden-Harris ticket, with Bernie Sanders out of the East Coast and Ed Markey, three senators, three Democrats, wrote a bill. And the bill said, well, we need more than that. And let me explain the comments that Senator Harris said at the time, not once, but several times on broadcast news. First, she said that $1,200 as a single check for 1 month is not even enough for a single month. That if we're just talking about one check, the single check is of $1,200 is not enough. Second, she said that one check, one stimulus check, even if it was a bigger amount, is still not enough. We need reoccurring or multiple stimulus checks, however you refer to them. I refer to them as multiple stimulus checks. And she said they have to come every month. The idea is not novel. A lot of countries around the world have done this because of the pandemic. Second, she said that the stimulus checks need to continue to come until two events happen. First, unemployment goes down, or two, the pandemic is over. Now, understand these comments were made in May by her. The bill was introduced in May. What were the deal provisions? The bill said $2,000 per month, because $1,200 was not enough by the author, according to the authors of the bill, $2,000 per month per individual. It doesn't matter if you're on SSDI, it doesn't matter if you're on Social Security or railroad benefits, and it would come every month for at least 6 months. That was the minimum, 6 months, and then after that we would look at 6 months and say, okay, what now is happening at the 6 month? Is the pandemic gone away? No, of course not. But in March, we really didn't know what was going on with this pandemic. Or two, has unemployment, the weekly jobless claims number, which is always 7 a.m., it's a Thursday at 5 a.m., you know it because I record it every single week. When that number drops, then we would get rid of the stimulus check by month 7. But you would be guaranteed to 6 months of $2,000. Now understand, this is not for everyone. It's only for people in need at an economic level that is generally the same as a stimulus check. So rich people would not be getting this, of course. Well, that was then. And the Temple of Doom said, oh no, we're not doing that. Now, I understand the Temple of Doom is in the House and they're in the Senate, but basically, the Democrats pushed Harris away, pushed Sanders away, pushed Markey away, said, oh, that's sort of ridiculous. We're not doing that. We need to give money to the big government. Well, now that the big government can ultimately be run by a Harris Biden ticket, or could be run again in a second term by Trump, there's calls by both Republicans and Democrats this week to say, you know what, we need multiple stimulus checks. So that was in May. By June and July, we were sitting here and we heard that there was going to be negotiations going on weeks and weeks with Pelosi and Mnuchin, and we presumed the stimulus check would arrive in June or July. It didn't. So that one stimulus check that would cover April, May, June, that one stimulus check that would arrive in July didn't come. Okay, so now we're in October and we're looking at getting a check in, November. Are we supposed to have one check for November and arriving in November that covers us from April to November? Hogwash. No one thinks that's even something that passes the smell test. Now, here is the double whammy, and this is why I love it. First, yesterday, Peter DeFazio, Democrat, Oregon, West Coast, up north, said, you know what? I represent senior citizens, and their single $1,200 stimulus check, which they may have gotten under the first stimulus package if they weren't a dependent, or they didn't get it if they are a dependent, he says that's not enough for them. And the new bill that's being proposed by the Temple of Doom, he didn't call her the Temple of Doom, I'm calling her the Temple of Doom, $1,200 stimulus check for my seniors, that's not enough. Well, guess who else it's not enough for? Everyone else needs a stimulus check. So DeFazio said, hey, we need multiple stimulus checks. And I'm going to talk to the Temple of Doom. I'm going to talk to the House and Ways Committee and say, hey, we need multiple stimulus checks. Ironically, one of the vastly reported subjects is that since Harris was chosen as the VP nominee, she has not talked about her own bill, nor has Sanders, nor has Ed Markey. And what's interesting about it is that vast majorities of the entire population support multiple stimulus checks. If there's singly been one issue that the viewers of this channel, 2 million views every 24 hours or 48 hours, have always co-signed was multiple stimulus checks. And they've always thought that $2,000 checks every month for several months would get them through this. They wouldn't have problems with rent or mortgages or food or unemployment. They would be fine if they had that. And so now the push is underway. Why? Because of two factors. First, it's very apparent that the second stimulus package is starting to become a potluck. It's starting to become a smorgasbord. It was initially one little cute package with a bow on it. Well, people started taking off the bow, opening up the box and saying, no, let's throw some more stuff into it. And so now in recent weeks, Steve Mnuchin, he threw more money for testing and tracing. He threw more money in for education. He threw more money in for schools. Okay. Temple Doom, she opened the box. She said, I need to throw in $20 billion for airlines. I need to throw in $20 billion for home and hospitality. Well, how about us? How about you and me? Who's speaking on behalf of you and me? I am. I am the Purple Power. I created Purple Power for a reason, because no one was speaking on behalf of you. I'm speaking on behalf of you. You're speaking on behalf of you. We're speaking on behalf of us. It's time that we step up and say, hey, we need a voice here. We can't afford a $30,000 a month lobbyist going to Washington and say, hey, where's the multiple stimulus checks for the American people? So we're using the best platform we can here to say, MSC, we are owed multiple stimulus checks. You didn't pay us the prior stimulus checks. You sort of still owe us on those. And that going forward, we need multiple stimulus checks. Second item, and this is a big one. The second item is now, it becomes very apparent that the package we are on now, which we often call the second stimulus package, is really going to merge into the second and third. By all accounts, some analysts believe that this second stimulus package won't get passed by act of Congress until after the election. Well, after the election is November. After the election could be after January. And by that point, $2 trillion, that gives you a measly $1,200 stimulus check, ain't going to cut it, folks. You need multiple stimulus checks. And here is the rub. That if there's a Biden-Harris win and that the Senate goes Democratic, you will absolutely, categorically, unlikely see a second stimulus package approved and in your hands until March of next year. By that time, you need not just a second stimulus package, but also a third stimulus package, and the bill can't be $2 trillion, it needs to be about $6 trillion. It's not going to cut it, because at that point it will have been 1 year since you were owed your stimulus checks and they didn't pay you. 1 year. You know how long it takes to get back to normal when you're owed things from a year earlier? It needs to be a monstrous package like no one has ever seen, and it's definitely not $2 trillion or $3 trillion. It's upwards of $6 trillion. So let me go over that. Now that I've gone over that, let me turn to executive orders. purple power. We are not getting off book on executive orders. The president needs to do executive orders. It's a Saturday. It's a Saturday, and you're going to see in a second in the next thing I have to go to why it's so important for this president to do executive orders. There has been a fake narrative, and I'm not going to go over the fake narrative, and it's come from Steve Mnuchin. I'm not going to go over anything that's fake, but the president can repurpose the money. In the last 2 days, you've heard me detail the incredible great news from this president, from Steve Mnuchin, that there's now $800 billion, not $300 billion, $800 billion that can be repurposed for stimulus checks, for FPUC, for LWA, however you call it, and for a lot of other things. The president needs to do it, should do it, and has to do it. Because ultimately, if he doesn't do it, I got to tell you, I don't think he's coming back. If he doesn't do executive orders and just does a blame game with Nancy Pelosi, which, is effective, I don't know if he's coming back. Because at this point, the stimulus that didn't get into people's hands, he could have done, and he didn't do it. Next, before the election, after the election, when would the stimulus come? First, let me talk about before the election. Mark Cuban overnight said that the stimulus package should and could come before the election. I would ask the American people to speak to their representatives and explain how important the stimulus program is to them, their families, and their communities. I would go to the senators and congressmen directly and ask them to put their constituents and their needs over the political party. Mark Cuban's remark is basically that elected officials have suddenly become very spineless and have now said, you know what, I'll just let one person do everything for our entire political party, and I'll go to have lunch, and I'll see you in a few months. And he says it doesn't work. He says the voice of the American people is stronger than any politician, but no one seems to want to listen to us. This is the first thing that needs to change. We need the stimulus as much as we did back then, referring to March. Those without help are struggling badly. We need to get the help. This lack of leadership and hyper-partisanship is causing all current politicians to be complicit in the problem. Amen. How about before the election? Well, a new report by a media individual, Mark Mulvaney, who's former acting White House chief of staff, overnight told Fox that he thinks that Trump will not do legislatively a second stimulus package before the election because it'll look like he gave away in the kitchen sink to Nancy Pelosi and will look weak. Folks are starting to pay attention to the fact that there could be huge political risks to the president at this time by doing a deal this late in the game. If they do a deal at this late point in the discussion, Nancy Pelosi is going to say the president caved in. The press will play up that angle, and it could actually hurt the president politically. That's his opinion. I want to hear your opinion. Drop in the comments below. Larry Kudlow overnight, who is the epitome of correct information on a daily basis, he says, I would do bigger. I would absolutely say I would go a lot more. I would go higher. I would absolutely do more. But he thinks that doing legislatively in the next few days might be difficult. The president overnight says Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to give anything. She thinks it helps her for the election. And I don't think so. I think it hurts her because ultimately she's holding it up. It's a narrative we all have heard so far, but ultimately the important thing you need to understand as we sit here today is what happens on day one after the election results. On day one after the election results, there is two periods of times. There's the first day after the election, and then there's the day after inauguration. If there is no stimulus done by legislative action before the election or by executive order, then the push to get it done after the election but before inauguration will be very problematic. I don't know where it's going to go. I really don't know where it's going to go. But if it's not done before inauguration or re-inauguration, then what you could potentially see is this dragging out to you not getting stimulus into your hand by March. I got to tell you, at that point, MSC is very loud and boisterous because at that point you say, hey, we don't deserve one check. We don't deserve two checks. You know how many checks we deserve? 12 checks. By that point, to think that people in America are going to get a stimulus check in April of 2021 when they've been waiting for a stimulus check since April of 2020, $1,200 is a joke, folks. I mean, just as a joke. So by that point, you need a lot of stimulus checks in your hands. You need a lot of months of FPUC retroactive. You need thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars landing in your bank account by that point. And it's categorically going to happen because it has to happen. Next, COVID-19. The bad news, as you would expect, is that COVID-19 is ravaging out of control, and there's now a concern that the vast majority of states are increasing the number of cases, as William Schaefer, an epidemiologist of Vanderbilt University. The growing sense of coronavirus fatigue is out there. People really don't want to go back to the old normal. During the summer, people went outdoors for air conditioning, but they did spread most of this time outdoors. Needless to say, as people become indoors, as the winter months start and lax in their attention, social distancing, and mask wearing, I can tell you the situation could be growing. Incredible. Let me answer some incredible questions from yesterday, and they were great. Michael Melton, a single father of 6, I need help. These politicians are playing games. Gabriel, Trump needs to do executive order and show Nancy who's boss. Benita, I'm so bothered by Pelosi. Tommy, Williams, is Nancy the dictator of his country? You answer that question for me. Now, what are they up to? I was doing my laundry on the laundromat when a homeless man came by and was digging through all the trash cans. I couldn't just let him go without sharing my laundry money with him. I gave him $6 and said, thank you very much. Oh, and he said, thank you very much. Then he asked if I didn't mind if I shared it with his friend. I told him it was up to him what he wants to do. And then I gave him $5 more for his friend. 15 minutes later, I was leaving the laundromat when I saw him and his friend go to Taco Bell. It brought a tear to my eyes, knowing that small act of kindness made a difference in their day. Anyone could be homeless. Maybe tomorrow could be me. Think about it. I think I want to end on that one. I didn't get to the rest of your comments, but that's a great comment. It's that type of act of kindness that really is the bottom into this channel, helping people, whether it's information or money, whether it's spirit, motivation, or feeling that we're together on this. We are. And I really do hope that you share this video, tag your politicians, because they have no hearts. They've lost their hearts. All they care about is collecting their pensions, going home, and at 85 years of age, they should not have been in office for 20, 30 years. They've not done any real good service to their country in the last 5, 10 years. They should have left. And at this point, we need younger blood. We need people who really do care. But for now, we're going to use the power of this medium to get our voices heard. So go to the front of this channel and subscribe. Subscribe because we're almost to the finish line, and together we'll get over it together. Also like this video. Coming up is 28, and boy, there'll be big updates in that as well. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay of LA for more.